In this video, I'm going to be comparing Meg as well as Meg 2 The Trench to Angels in the Outfield from 1951 as well as 1994. The 1951 version is black and white. The 1994 version is in color. I've seen the Angels in the Outfield movies. I have not seen the Meg films. When it comes to the highest Rotten Tomatoes score, with Meg, neither movie is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. With Angels in the Outfield, the 1951 version is an 83%, whereas the highest score for Meg is literally only a 46% for the first Meg. Angels in the Outfield wins. And then when you look at lowest score, with Meg, the second movie that came out in 2023, only has a 27%. When you look at Angels in the Outfield, the 1994 version has a 31%. So Angels in the Outfield wins here. Then when you look at average score, Meg only has an average of 36, whereas Angels in the Outfield has an average score of, 83 plus 31, 114, 57. Yeah, as an average score of 57. So Angels in the Outfield wins here. And then when you look at gap between lowest and highest score, with Angels in the Outfield, you have a gap of 52. With Meg, you have a gap of 21. So Meg wins this round, but Angels in the Outfield already won the first 3 rounds, so it's going to win this debate. Now let's look at my personal opinion. These are definitely two different franchises, that's for sure. When it comes to Angels in the Outfield, there are these sports fantasy movies where you have baseball and you also have angels. In both cases, you have a coach that at first is rather cranky, mean, rude, unpleasant. It tends to yell at people. And then this angel comes into the picture to say, hey, I'll help you out if you promise to behave better. Thus, the coach starts to change for the better, starts to connect with other people more. I think that's pretty interesting. I like the characters that we see in these movies. When it comes to the 1994 version, you have these boys that are in a foster home. They're orphans, pretty sure if I remember right. They are they're not really that happy in their foster home, but they end up being happier by the time the movie's over. They end up seeing a baseball game. When it comes to the 1951 version, you have the coach who ends up going to this Catholic orphanage. He finds this girl, doesn't really have a family, takes her in, ends up basically becoming a parent along with this woman. I think that it's pretty interesting, to be honest. When it comes to Meg, these are dumb movies. There's no other way to phrase it. They're trying to be dumb, schlocky, fun B movies. It feels to me like with Meg 2, the filmmakers just decided, you know what, we're going to throw everything at the screen just to make this movie as fun, entertaining as possible. So if you're someone who likes shark movies a lot, you will certainly enjoy the Meg movies, especially Meg 2. You'll just have fun with it as dumb, schlocky fun, not as an actual good movie. I would say for me that with Meg, it feels a bit reminiscent of other things I've seen before. I mean, when you're talking about sea creatures, for one, that feels just a little bit like Pirates of the Caribbean with the Kraken, or when you have like a megalodon, it kind of feels to me a little bit like Jurassic Park with the dinosaurs, especially underwater ones. Just in general, and you have people fighting against creatures, and like, okay, that feels a bit like what you'd see in Godzilla v Kong, one of the MonsterVerse films. So it seems to me like it's a bit familiar. Whereas of Angels in the Outfield, there's not another movie that comes to my mind immediately that's really similar to Angels in the Outfield. I mean, maybe it's a bit similar to Field of Dreams, sure, because it's a sentimental sports movie that I think also does that involve angels? I don't know. I think it involves ghosts. these ghosts end up playing a baseball game, but I don't know whether that involves angels. So, if angels in the outfield, I think it's the one I would choose because it feels a little bit more distinct. It doesn't feel quite as much like other things I've seen before. I think that the audience for Meg will enjoy these movies. But it doesn't really surprise me that they have a low Rotten Tomatoes score, because if you're not as much into shark movies, you probably won't enjoy these movies as much. So they don't have the biggest appeal, they don't have the broadest appeal. They're not aiming for the biggest possible audience. I think the filmmakers know what kind of people are going to enjoy these movies, and they're making Meg to target those people. Whereas if Angels in the Outfield, it seems to me like that has more of a broad appeal to it. It's a bigger audience rather than Meg, that's a little bit more niche compared to Angels in the Outfield. Though I would certainly choose Angels in the Outfield. That'll wrap things up for this video.